Good. Good. All righty. 2 minutes after 6. Welcome, everyone. We're going to start. I know some people are going to be joining us, and also we have our friends online who have joined us tonight. This event is streamed, and so it'll be available for anyone to watch after the presentation. So if someone you know did not make it tonight, let them know that they can go online and find this presentation. This presentation tonight is part 3 of a public engagement exercise where the results of the survey, now that they've been completed, are being reported out. So we first reported out the survey results with the multipurpose committee. That was done last Tuesday, over a week ago. We then reported out to Committee of the Whole and Council the following Thursday, last week, and now tonight. Tonight's presentation will be brought to you by HCMA, the consultants leading the work with the multipurpose committee. HCMA is a Vancouver-based firm. They do a lot of work with recreation facilities in and around BC and across the world. Joining tonight is both Darren and Roya from their office. They're going to present. There's going to be an opportunity for questions, and we're going to keep tonight's focused on the survey results. We are going to hopefully talk at the end of the presentation a little bit about next steps. Where does council go from here? But with that, there's a lot to digest tonight. It's a beautiful night, so I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight because you had options, and it was great to see that you've come out here, and also our friends online. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Darren, and we'll get the show on the road. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Roya. I'll just, I think I have to share my screen. Oh no, it's sharing already. Okay, so yes, thank you very much for joining us tonight on a beautiful date like today. We're hoping to share the results of the survey, and by your presence, it's obviously a very important topic in Revelstoke, so we want to share with you how that was represented in the survey results. So we'll look at the purpose of the survey, the methodology, who participated, the results, and what we heard. So as Evan mentioned, this is part of a series of the feasibility study for a multipurpose facility in Revelstoke, and the purpose is to gather input and see what the possibilities are for a replacement indoor sports facility. And then the survey also was testing what the public response would be to possible programming scope, different types of features, site characteristics, and what that means for taxes. And then also to see where really the community agrees and where ideas about the replacement facility diverge, and what the trade-offs would be. So in order to develop the survey, we went through a number of steps. There were a few drafts shared with the advisory committee, which we got lots of good feedback and comments and helped develop the questions of the survey to be more and more specific. There was an update to council in November. There were a number of kind of beta tests of the survey online. And then in order to kind of make sure that as many people participated as possible, there were also info sessions and social media and city communications. So among those offline, there were posters, 17 posters, there were radio advertisements, there were local newspaper advertisements, mail-outs, media releases, seniors coffee chat, mass emails, notice board, and a mayor's announcement. Online, there was also posting on the Talk Revelstoke page, many Facebook posts and stories, Instagram posts, LinkedIn, YouTube, other websites for the open house. So there were many opportunities to engage as many people as possible in the community to make sure that we had a diverse set of responses. So I'm sure most of you are aware how the survey worked, but we can just kind of share it again here. At the beginning of the survey, participants were asked whether or not they were interested in replacing the existing forum or developing a new multipurpose facility. So if you selected that you supported that, you would be taken in a route to share more about what you would see at a facility like this. So what would the base facility be, which is mostly about, those were questions about ice rink and the curling rink. So you got to select among those. Then there were questions about additional features, and we'll go through all of these in detail. And then you rated your interest in those or support for those additional features and potential sites and site priorities. And then most of these, it was a dynamic survey, so you would see as you're selecting what you're more interested in, what the kind of cost implications were for the site, for the different facility options. If you, at the beginning phase, selected you opposed a new forum or a new multi-purpose facility, then you were asked whether you supported, in principle, a smaller or community rink, shared your response about that. And then the two surveys converged again. You were asked about cost implications or tax implications, and P3 support, so public-private partnerships. And then you were asked to share a bit about yourself so we could see kind of who participated in the survey. And through that, we received a number of types of information. So the survey platform is called Othello. And in Othello, we were able to kind of capture different types of results. So support, approval. So support was kind of that range of like you really highly support or you're strongly oppose. And then each of those values in that range gave a certain value that we ended up with a number. So, and then there's approval, so that's the amount of positive votes. Conflict was the kind of divergence. Consensus, whereas the strength of an option, which is combined support and conflict. And then voter percentage, which is kind of a more straightforward number of just how many people selected a certain thing. When Darren will share the results, you'll see that there's different types of support. We've tried to be as clear as possible about what those results mean. And then there were also many opportunities for comments to be shared on many of the pages of the survey. So there were about 780 comments, and we went through each of the comments, tagged them with different themes, and kind of saw where there were different types of topics or sentiments shared. So that's how the comments were analyzed. So we're really happy to see so much participation in the survey. So there were 1,504 completed submissions on the survey. There were 6,500 actual unique visits to the site, so that's a 30% completed submission rate, which we've been told is very good. And of those who started the survey, 84% completed it, as in got all the way to the end and pressed submit. And those are the results that we're going to see. We did not include ones that did not submit. So this shows that there were really strong completion and participation rates in the community, which we're happy to see. So these were part of the About You questions. People were able to share how old they are or who was completing the survey. So, and this graph, you can see The darker color is those who participated in the percentage of those who participated in the survey. Yeah. Right, I don't know how to make it larger. Do you know how to make it larger? Yeah, okay. Okay, there we go. Yeah, okay.
And just pan over to it.
Okay. So thank you for mentioning. I didn't see it there. So it's a little bit hard to see actually the light bars on there. It's not showing up so well, but essentially we graphed the ages of those who completed the survey with the census of Revelstoke, census ages. So you could see that there was actually, it did mostly follow the trend of those who live in Revelstoke, which shows that there was a wide variety of people. There was a higher kind of proportion of people between 35 and 44, but otherwise we did get a good cross-section of the community. And then we asked if you're a caregiver for a child or youth, so about half were not caregivers and about half had somebody between 0 to 15, and some said they prefer not to say. So that shows that, yeah, there was a wide variety of people that participated. Oh, what are you seeing now? Okay, let's go back in here. Okay. Should I zoom in again? Yeah. Okay. So in terms of the who participated, if they were from Revelstoke or not, about 81%, we'll go here first. So 95% of the people that responded to the survey were year-round residents, so that really shows like very local character in the participation. And 81% own residential property, and then close to 7% also own commercial property. So this tells us that we're confident that there was like a strong local population. There was maybe some questions of whether it's just visitors or seasonal visitors that come, but that were participating in the survey, but we can see from here that it was very local. We were also asked how people would use the facility. So let's see here. Or who would use it first? Were mostly adults. They identified that children, teenagers, seniors would be using it. There was not an option to select none, but you could have not selected an option, so that's where the none comes from. And then most also consider themselves both spectators and participants in this use of this facility, and some just participants and or spectators, or some neither. Oh, sorry. And then we asked what types of clubs or associations that the user or that the survey respondents were participated in. That's very weird. Just share the screen again. No, wrong slide. Sorry about that. Okay. Yes, there we go. So we're looking at what types of activities and clubs the respondents participated in. So there's a huge diversity and breadth of the clubs and organizations. Number one was the Nordic and Alpine Ski Club, hockey, none of the ones on the list. There was also opportunity to write in, so there was a number of write-ins for skating and figure skating, volleyball, golf, adaptive sports, arts, theater, all kinds of things. So this kind of helped us just see that there were many interests and a large diversity of use or interests in Revelstoke for sports and multi-purpose uses. So I'll let Darren.
Okay. So I get to talk about the results. So all of those pieces are really important. The who responded and how the process went. And I think it was great to see. I was having a conversation just before we started to talk about the number, the 1,500 respondents. That's a really great number for your community. I heard the number that roughly 355 is a rough kind of number in terms of a threshold to try and get at. And the fact that we're at 1,500 really means something, that this is an important topic to your community. And it's great to see that response to the survey.
Would you remind us who you represent?
Yeah, so we're both with HCMA.
You're independent.
That's right. So we're a consultant. So I'm an architect. But I'm from Calgary, and I'm an architect. But what our company does is we work with a lot of municipalities. So I've worked in the town of Golden. I've worked with a lot of smaller municipalities in terms of helping manage and understand the recreation needs within a community. And then part of that is what we do is we help establish these types of surveys and be able to work through those. And we've got a good history working with this Othello platform that helps people go through this type of survey. So we're a consultant, and that's what our role is here, to help with that. So okay, so let me talk about the results. So of the people, so in the first question that we talked about, the first question was, do you support the replacement of the forum? And of the people that responded, 80.5% said, yes, we support the replacement of the forum. 19.5% said, no, I oppose that. And so if you said yes, then we moved to learning a little bit more about what they wanted to see. So 1,200 respondents, yes, 292 said no. And then the next question they were asked is, what type of base facility do you want? Do you support? And there were three options. Option A was to build a brand new arena and a new curling rink. Option B was build a brand new arena, but then keep the existing curling. And then option 3 was just build a new arena, like for the forum. And the results said that 63% chose option A, so the highest majority of people chose option A, followed by option B, and then the least favorable was option C. So what that tells us is that curling is an important piece for the community, that between A and B, the curling was important for people. And at the end of each section, there was always an open-ended question. We gave an opportunity for everybody who was doing the survey to say, is there anything else you want to tell us? Is there any pieces that we missed? And so this was an open-ended question, and so these were part of the 780 responses that we read through, gave them themes, and let them surface to the top. And these were some that came up. So some of the main themes was cost and right sizing, so that's not surprising. You're really keen on making sure, let's get the right size. We're concerned about affordability and cost. Let's get that right. So a lot of comments came in that regard. Curling was important. That was a main theme. And then many wanted broader community use, not just hockey and curling. Also within comments, you pick up on a few tensions. And so some of the key tensions that came up were some people were saying, you know what, this is a legacy facility for us. This is going to be for our kids and for generations moving forward. Let's build it right. Let's get the right size of facility. And then there were some people who said, I'm really nervous about affordability. Let's keep this right sized. And so we saw that in the tension of the comments. There were comments about information gaps. People thought, oh, are there other options than what's put here on the survey? That was a fair question. There were questions still about, is renovation of the existing forum still an option? Those were comments that were included in there. And then there were a few fairness concerns around the amenities. Do they only benefit the Grizzlies? Do they benefit other people? So all really valid comments that surfaced in some of those commentaries. So then moving to the next section of the survey, participants were asked about additional features. What is your interest level to different types of additional amenities that we could add to this facility if it's possible? And now this is in the support category, meaning when we see that gymnasium here is surfacing to the top. So this had the highest level of interest. This does not mean 64% of people chose this. This means that this received a 64% of support. So this means that it's averaged across all the people, and 64%, meaning the highest percentage, chose gymnasium, followed by multipurpose, then fitness center, indoor climbing, and then additional seating. All of them are pretty close if you look at it. There's not a big gap between it. It goes from 53% to 64%. So it tells us that I imagine, gymnasium, multipurpose room, those are all truly multi-purpose spaces, and I imagine that's likely why they surface to the top. A lot of people in the community want options for their different user groups, their different community groups, different sports to be able to use spaces, and a gymnasium, multipurpose room, those types of spaces surface to the top. Some of the comments that came out of this section, a strong support for broader year-round recreation. We heard that a lot. Cost sensitivity, which we've already talked about. There was concern about duplicating existing facilities. So this was a good comment. People were like, hey, we already have a few gymnasiums in the community. Let's just make sure that the demand is there, that this is exactly what we need. Let's make sure that we're not duplicating anything that is already existing within our community. So good point there. Some key tensions. Seating, the additional seating was a bit more contested. Some people were saying, yeah, let's add seating so that we can draw in different events, maybe concerts, maybe all sorts of different types of events, not just hockey. And others were saying, well, who's benefiting from these seats? Who's benefiting from that additional amenity and cost? So great question there as well. There was a request in terms of, can we do a business case? Can we figure out what is the return on investment if we were to invest more in this type of seating or in this type of facility? What type of benefit do we get back as a community? We're a tourism-based community. What type of investment or what type of return do we get back on that? And then lastly would be phasing. People, we all acknowledge, the facility for our future and our future kids. Maybe is there a way to build a portion of it and then we add to it in the future? Also very reasonable. The next portion of the survey was on the site. So this is where the purpose of this part of the survey was to suggest 4 sites. These are not the only sites, but it was a suggestion to say, here are some example sites of where this could be located. Tell us how you feel about it, and tell us what are some of the key attributes that you care about in where this building could be located? And so when we asked that question, the top priority that came out of the group was number 1, the highest ranking one here, so 34% here on the left, location and closeness to downtown, and that was tied with site size and growth. So what I hear out of that is proximity to downtown is important to you, and then number 2, maybe we're building at a certain scale, but we want to have that flexibility to increase that and grow with it in that location. We don't want to be landlocked, and then in the future we want another sheet of ice, and then now we don't have room for it. So, and then the second priority is cost. which makes sense. This slide represents the 4 potential options that we put out there to get some feedback on. So option A was Centennial Park. Option B was Public Works Yard. Option C was Pine Ridge Crescent. And option D was Powerhouse Road. Sure. So the key thing here is that 66%, so the highest support was for the Public Works Yard. And the highest level of opposition was for Centennial Park. So that's some of the results that we see there. And so when we think about what are the main themes surrounding that, there was a strong concern about displacing current amenities. Makes a ton of sense too, especially at Centennial Park, and even on Powerhouse. I know there's the disc golf. So there's a number of really valuable amenities for the community, and what's going to happen if you displace those and get rid of those. So that came up quite a bit. Centrality, walkability, school, transit access, that was an important theme. Practical issues around some of those, like Pine Ridge, you got to cross a bridge for, and how does that bottleneck? What are some challenges around there? And then environmental concerns, particularly around floodplain habitat, soil conditions. So those are some of the key things. A couple other comments. A few other sites were suggested through the process. One in particular was the Queen Elizabeth Park, and another one was the area next to the old public eatery. Am I saying that right? Old school eatery, thank you. So there's a site there. That one's actually pretty small, so I don't think it would actually fit an arena on it, so that's probably not a starter, but good to hear that some people were making some suggestions about some other sites that could potentially work. I think Queen Elizabeth is actually a really great location, and would be great to continue to explore. So now at the end of this portion, at the end of it, everybody who went through the survey, they built their own facility that they wanted to see. And then at this point in the survey, they were asked, okay, now you've built your building, and now you see how much it costs and you see how much your taxes would increase. How do you feel about that? And how do you feel about the increase in taxes? And of the people that responded to this question, 81% said that they supported some level of taxation increase. And so that's the addition of this 29% and the 52%. So 29% somewhat supported and 52% strongly supported the addition of taxes for the facility that they cared about, that they thought was of highest value. And 7% combined opposition after the cost review. So now going back to the first group of individuals who said no. So these were the individuals that were in opposition and did not support the replacement of this facility. And after that question, they were asked, okay, understanding you don't support the replacement, would you support the development of a smaller community level arena? And in that, the largest amount, 32%, opposed the smaller arena. But there were 16% and 23%, so roughly 40% did support a smaller scale arena. And so some of the main themes that surfaced for the individuals that did not support the replacement of the arena, not surprisingly, cost and affordability, that's a key one. Increased taxes would be lumped into that. Still an interest in the renovation option that surfaced. They were concerned about some bias in the engagement process that surfaced, and fairness concern, again, around amenities only benefiting the Grizzlies, or does it benefit the community? So those were some of the comments that came out of that. So as part of this survey platform and how it works, it is trying to balance all of these different inputs that the participants put in. And so it's trying to balance support, it's balancing conflict and consensus, and when it measures that, it comes up with the highest level of consensus, and this is roughly around 72%. So this is not saying this is the suggested community size or facility size for your community. This is what the survey data is coming out with and saying that 72% gives the highest consensus of option A, base arena, new curling facility. It includes a gymnasium, it includes a multipurpose room, and a fitness center, and that it's located on a site that gives opportunity for growth and room for it to grow. And the total cost of that facility was roughly around $106 million. And that's the total project cost. That is not a construction cost. Construction cost is much less. That includes soft costs, contingencies, escalation to a future date. So it has all those pieces included into it. And then there was a question about increased taxes. And this was to be a bit more general, saying not specific to your arena, but how do you feel about an additional annual residential tax? And what comfort level would you be willing to contribute for the replacement of a facility? And so what we see down here, which is not surprising, the lowest level, we have a group, 22.5% said, we don't want any additional taxes. And then the next step up was the $200 to $300 range. Maybe I can zoom into this if that's helpful. And then it gets less and less from there. But that's not surprising. That's in every community that you see that. Nobody wants to pay more taxes, so that makes a ton of sense. So, but it is great to see that there are some people, for example, 8%, 9%, are individuals that say, I believe in this facility, it's important to us, I'm willing to pay an additional level of taxes. And so when you add up all of the green bars, it equates to 77.5% of those respondents who responded to the survey are willing to support some level of tax increase for this. I just have a few more slides, and then can we go to the questions? Is that okay?
Yeah, it was about the taxes.
Okay, we'll come right back to that. Let me just finish the survey, and then we'll open it up for questions. So in terms of some of the themes that we heard in terms of the open-ended questions for tax and cost, concern about affordability, we've heard that throughout the survey, cost sensitivity, let's get it the right size for our community. Many people wanted clear information on long-term operating costs. We didn't include operating costs within the survey, we only included capital cost, so that's a good point. Operating costs are fairly challenging to calculate per component, like a gymnasium, it's a bit challenging in that way, but that was one of the comments. Stronger business case and return on investment, and questions about trade-offs. So those are some of the pieces. Another question was, how does the community feel about public-private partnership? So, acknowledging, trying to get more funding or get in a better position for funding. What is the community's comfort level about exploring partnerships and private partnerships? And 54% of the community said they would approve the exploring of partnerships. 36% said they would be interested but would like some more information. So that's great to hear. So as we wrap up here, I think if we were to summarize some of the key themes that we heard through the survey is that first and foremost, really great participation from the community, 1,500 respondents, and that out of that, a strong mandate came for a replacement to the forum in some form or another. And that was 80.5% of individuals agreed with that and supported it. Another key theme was that there needs to be cost discipline throughout this, and it's non-negotiable. We need to get it at the right size, and that there is affordability concerns. Right sizing, like I mentioned here. There was broad support, over 50%, for a P3 partnership. And then fairness questions. Are all the organizations and users contributing, and is it fair what they're getting in that regard? So those are some of the key pieces that we heard as we pull out of that. But overall, really good response from the community, and there's a lot of really great data and information and nuances that we learned from the community that we were able to pull from, and the community is able to use it to move forward and make some informed decision. So with that, I will leave it at that from our formal presentation. I think we'll move into the question period. So I'll turn it back over to Evan.
Thanks, Darren. So now we're going to open the floor to questions. There's a mic in front of me. Feel free to stand up because some people will not be able to hear. And Our consultants here, HCMA, are here to answer any questions on the methodology, the survey results, clarity on that. That's going to be the topic tonight. So with that, I'm going to invite folks to come forward with some questions, and then hopefully Darren and Roya can provide more clarity, and then we'll wrap it up. I mean, we're scheduled to go till 9 o'clock tonight. We're not obviously going to go till 9, but we're going to be here as long as you folks have questions. So with that, I invite you to come forward. Thank you.
Thanks for the presentation. My question was about taxes. So that tax question, are you willing to pay more taxes, was kind of open-ended. It wasn't clear if it was until the facility was paid for and then a reassessment of those taxes. So is that a correct assumption and how people understood that question?
Yeah, and so this gets into how the borrowing capacity works for the municipality in terms of that goes. So Evan might add some color here, but I think the intent was that yes, until the debt is paid for, that those would be the annual increase for the residential taxes.
Yeah, thank you. I believe the question is, if you agree to a tax increase, is it just for the period of the debt? And if the debt's 20 years, the increase is for 20 years and that's it. If the debt's for 30 years, the increase is for 30 years. In other words, the amortization. So it all depends on the referendum question. It all depends on how much debt the municipality takes on. If they take on $40 million, $50 million of debt and it's spread over a period of 30 years, 35 years, that's how long the commitment would be from the residential and commercial taxpayer. It basically flows the length of the term of the amortization period.
Hi there. My name is Mark McKee. I have a couple of questions. First one is that I'm one of the 16% that didn't finish the survey. The first question was, are you something like, I don't remember exactly, are you in favor of a new arena? And I said no. So went to the next question. So you're in favor of tearing down the existing arena? It was the gist of what I got from the second question. And that kind of annoyed me because I wasn't. And so I walked out of the survey and didn't finish. I just thought, to me, it sounded like it was, we're looking for a predetermined destination on the survey, and it annoyed me after the first question, so I didn't finish it. I don't know how many, it's only said 16% of the people didn't finish it, but that's the way that I started, and I didn't have a good taste in my mouth. I have a lot of questions, and maybe it's more for Evan, but I guess I'm concerned that, we're talking about this council, I understand, has made a decision that 50 million is going to be the ceiling of the debt. And the question I have for you, Evan, is can the city actually borrow $50 million? Because when I was involved with the city, there was no way that we could borrow that kind of money.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to take a seat just over here.
Sure.
Yeah, it's probably best, rather than me trying to hide over there. The answer is yes. Debt servicing, it all relates to the capacity to finance debt. In other words, how much money do you have in a given year? It's called debt servicing. How much money do you have available to finance debt? We could go higher than 50 million. We could actually borrow up to 75 million under our current debt servicing numbers. That's basically all the taxes we collect every year. A certain percentage has to be available to finance debt, and it's approved by the Inspector of Municipalities. In short, as your community grows, so does your debt servicing.
Okay.
So we do not propose, and this is all preliminary, there's been no commitment from council, we do not propose 75 million, it's too rich. And the reason we're looking at 50 million as a possibility is 50 million to finance on an average home in Revelstoke is roughly $430, $440 per year on the average household. And that's consistent with the survey results. But the short answer to your question is yes.
So, but a $50 million debt is going to add about 11% taxes just on interest. Then to pay the debt off is another 11%. So you're talking 22% increase for that 50 million. But we're seeing figures that are being thrown around, 60, 70, 80, 106 million was brought up tonight. Where does the other $56 million come from?
Yeah. You know, in short, we have to find a partner or grants. We cannot fund this project 100% by debt. It's impossible.
That's right.
So we either have to find a partner, we have to be aggressive on community fundraising, and the most we're probably going to raise is 10%, and that's a large number. I mean, 10% of 50 million, hard to raise $5 million locally. It's possible. Or a partner. So partner, grants, other. And there's going to be a local fundraising initiative. And there are grants out there. There's a new federal grant. The details haven't been shared yet. There are some small provincial grants, but right now the province is struggling. So to answer the question, if we come to a total price tag of, I'm just going to pick a figure, 70 million, 80 million, and the capacity to finance only 50 million through debt, we're going to have to find the other money elsewhere. We do have a reserve, but the reserve is small. It's growing at $1.1 million a year. So we're at roughly $3.5 million in our arena reserve. It would be nice to have it larger, but that's basically all the funds we have available.
So at 70, 80, or $106 million, does that pay for the mobilization and rebuilding of the Public Works Department, if that's where this goes, or is that added on top of this 106 or 70 or 80? Like, you know, I guess, you know, I hope that City Council and City Hall realizes how expensive it is to live and play in this town. And we've got other projects that need it. We've got water, we got a huge sewer treatment plant problem that I'm hoping is going to get resolved, but you know, I don't know. We've thrown a lot of money at it over the years. We're talking 22% just for this project, and you can't stand there and tell me, Evan, that there isn't a whole bunch of other priorities for this town over the next 5 years, 10 years, because there is, and we all know that there is. So it's not 22%. It's going to be 30 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5, and you know, I'm sorry, but I really feel for the young people that move here that can't afford to be living the lifestyle that they thought they were going to get when we came here. And you know, it's not going to affect me that much, but it is. And you know, I have commercial tenants that I pass it on. But you know, we talk about the $400. Well, you got to remember that the commercial properties looks to me, with the latest figure you guys put out, are 5.5 times that. And that's another huge burden to put on an already taxed business community. And I think we got to start thinking about all the people that live here that enjoy the town, and are they still going to be able to do that? And you know, I'm sorry, I have a difficult time supporting the road that we're going down on this, because I think that we got to spend more time and more effort and think a little more out of the box, because the provincial government has no money to help us. And I guess the question to you, Darren, is these P3 projects that you're talking about, well, private companies coming in and partnering, they want a return too. They want something back. You know, what's the percentage of these types of facilities that are going out to P3s? You tell me, in the last 10 years, is it 5%, 10%, 50%? I have no idea. It's a question for you. Is it actually a reality that we can come up with a P3 project in Revelstoke for a facility that we're talking about?
Well, I mean, Mark, I'm never known to dodge a question. So everything you talk about, we're just reporting out tonight. And I hear you, and no decision's been made. We're just trying to gauge the public support, trying to understand if there's a mandate to move forward on a new facility. And so tonight is just reporting out on the survey results. Your questions get into another discussion. I do know of P3s that are out there. We're looking at them very closely. Yes, they can come to Revelstoke. There's no reason they can't. I'm very pleased to hear that Mark Carney has announced a 10-year, $55 billion infrastructure program, but that's going to be heavily competed. And we know that it's not going to be easy to secure funds, but it's better than nothing. We're getting the details on that, but a lot of your questions are for another night that we're going to have to discuss, because it really gets down to financing and the cost. But tonight, I just want to make sure that we report out, this is what the community's saying. The legislation requires council to go to electoral consent. So in British Columbia, if you borrow money, you need the public's approval. The mandate is what council's looking for, is what's the appetite from the public, and that's what the survey is all about, so we can report back to council, this is what the public's saying. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy East, a local taxpayer. I keep hearing you say that this is what the community says. Wow, what wonderful results. 64%. 1,500, I mean, how many people are here? 100? Not even 100. And you're saying 1,500 people. We couldn't even approve a small mall with a new shopping center in this town. How many people voted for mayor? I mean, I don't think we get more than 800?
1,900.
Pardon?
1,900.
1,900 voted for mayor. Okay. So still, I'm a little concerned with all the talk about how enthusiastic Darren and company are, but I just don't see it in this community. I mean, the tax base certainly can't support that, the residential tax base. I saw the number $106 million, but what did that refer to? It was in really tiny print. I mean, it's like you're starting from a premise of deficit budgeting, like somebody who wants to buy a house, but they really can't project that they'll be able to make the payments going forward, but they're emotionally tied to the purchase. So I just think it's a really flimsy base we're starting from.
No, thank you for that. The comment about enthusiasm on the survey, we're talking about the numbers and the response rate. When we typically do a survey, we get between 300, 400 responses. To get 1,500 is exceptional for Revelstoke.
You could do that survey 3 times.
Yes, we could. I'm just saying.
So I thought it was poorly designed.
Fair enough. I'm just saying.
Or 5 times.
All right, thank you.
I can just, so the Othello consultants, the ones that developed
Yeah, the platform.
survey, the platform, they actually go through the results, and when there are kind of dubious multiple answers from the same, and in a very short period of time from the same IP address, if there was like a large group that we had questions about, we checked, maybe there was like, an event where people were answering like in a group, so that would be the same IP address, and we wouldn't have to like invalidate those answers. But there were checks done about answering the survey. Obviously, you didn't have to put your social insurance number in or something to participate, so we can't, tell you exactly who participated. But there were checks made to make sure that there wasn't, too many multiple.
But my household has 3 different emails,
Yeah.
so I could have done one off of each email.
It wasn't based on emails necessarily, but they have a system to go through it. I wasn't doing the programming of it, but yeah.
My name is Marianne Kristinsky. I am a homeowner. Naturally, being also a senior with a fixed income, I am concerned about taxes. I'm like Mark. I took one look at the survey and the question either or, and demolished the one that exists with no other alternatives. I got totally turned off. I did not complete the survey. At what level does this go to referendum so that taxpayers could actually vote on whether or not they approve borrowing or approve a tax increase?
So the question is from the post-survey, now that the survey's done, is the question, when would the referendum question come before the public? There's 2 options. It can be either this fall at the municipal election, or it could be in 2027 or 2028. That's to be determined by council.
But what number of dollars determines whether or not it goes?
The dollars and council has to decide when to host the referendum, and in the question will be the amount that's going to be asked to be financed through debt. I think what you're asking is, when we get a Class C or a Class B estimate on what that facility will cost, and we're comfortable with that number, staff will recommend to council we need to borrow X amount, and then council decides the date.
I lived in Prince George before moving here.
Yep.
They wanted to build a huge multiplex. The referendum was no. So what did the city do? They split the two so that they were able to borrow money for this, and then down in the future, they were able to borrow money for this. Neither had to go to a referendum. That's why I'm concerned about the amount of dollars that council feels comfortable with. It's fine for you to feel comfortable with it, but I want to know what the upper limit is for it to go to referendum.
It doesn't work that way. Yeah, okay. I understand the question. You don't get to a certain number where you're now mandated to go to the people.
Okay.
I think that's your question. I'm sorry if I didn't quite understand it. It's not like once we reach 70 million or 80 million, we must go to the people. We have to go to the people in British Columbia. It's called electoral consent legislation. Anything that's financed more than 5 years, 60 months, needs electoral consent, regardless of the number. I think that's the question, so thank you for clarifying that. So obviously, for a project of this size, electoral consent is required for anything financed more than 5 years. If you can finance something within 5 years and use internal financing, in other words, you have reserves, you don't need electoral consent. So if you need $2 million to fix a road, or you have a reserve of $50 million, and you can pay for that project less than 5 years, you don't need electoral consent.
I just want to speak to two comments that have come up a couple of times. First, the first question, we apologize if that's the way that was read. I think we looked at this together as an advisory committee. We went through those, and I think the rationale that came out of that was that if you start asking a series of questions, we wanted to be respectful to people who did not support the replacement of this. And we wanted to put that first and foremost, so it wasn't leading them down different ways or different questions, or getting them to have to answer a whole bunch of questions if they didn't support that. And I think that was the rationale behind it. It wasn't meant to put people off. It was meant to say, do you support it or do you not? And then that took you down a series of different questions. So
I support it, I just don't want to pay for it.
yeah, and and that's fair. So
I want families and young people in this town to have the facility.
Yeah.
yeah.
And that,
I
and
want to pay for it. And I paid for it when my kids were young.
Yeah.
for me, to that point, I'm very pleased to see that the public is saying, let's explore a partnership. And that's one of the mandates of this survey that I'm pleased with, because it doesn't mean it's the burden of the taxpayer. What that looks like is yet to be determined. There's lots of models out there.
But times are really tough
They are.
for young people especially.
They yeah, 100%.
So, and just,
You have to be smart and sensible.
Just the second piece here that's worth noting is that when we put a dollar value in nobody knows what a facility will cost until it is tendered or until a contractor puts forward a price. And until that point in time, it's all estimating. And so the numbers that were included in the survey are intended to be notional. They're intended to help educate people with a conservative number, so that when they say, yes, I want a gymnasium, yes, I want seats, yes, I want these things, that there is a number associated with it, so that people understand that there's a cost to those types of decisions. When you don't have those numbers, what we find when you don't have those numbers, and you ask people what they want, well, we want it all. And so it's in an effort to help educate people. Those numbers are not the actual number, because no one will ever know that until there's a full design and there's a contractor at the table that says, this is the cost of it.
But they were received from a cost estimator, and they did it based on comparable facilities in recent years with the escalation in costs, and then also based on the location. So they were based on some numbers.
Next speaker.
Okay, I don't know if I can follow that. My name is Betty Sloan. I am a homeowner and a taxpayer as well. I want to get back to your results that you reported on the support for increased taxation. So just kind of from memory, there was around 1,500 people answered, 15% didn't finish, and 15% that did finish are not homeowners. And then there's the big 73% number up there. Can you just dive into that a little bit more? So,
Maybe I could pull it up on the screen, see if,
because the
tech
support,
person can
I
help
just
us.
want to get at,
Yeah.
really, what is the support of the people that are going to have to foot the bill for this?
So the 1,500, yeah, okay, there we go.
yeah, so it's important to know when we give, was it this slide?
Yes.
So
yeah.
this, when we say, first and foremost, when we say 1,500, so those are the people that finished the survey. So when we talk about any individuals who did not finish the survey, that's,
So Mark would not be in the 1,500?
he would not be in the 1,500
Okay.
because he didn't finish the survey. So, sorry. And so what this number here, 77.5, is the addition of, sure, thank you, yeah. So 22.5% of the respondents, of that 1,500,
Which are not all taxpayers.
90, was it 95% or 80?
They were-
85.
80% were were owners, so they are paying taxes. So 22.5% said no additional taxes. And then 22.5 said the lowest level, which is 200 to 300. Does that help?
But some of them aren't taxpayers that are answering yes.
Correct.
So my
Correct.
point-
So 80% of the 1,500 is now the value, and then 22% of those individuals gave the no, and then those are the percentages that went up.
So those numbers up there only include taxpayers willing
No,
to pay?
this includes everybody who responded to the question. So this is the 1,500, but the point bringing up here, which is true, is that we know that 80.5% of them, plus 6, which would be commercial property owners. So there's 6% that are commercial property owners, 80% which are residential property owners. Those are the people paying taxes of this number.
Yeah,
So in a worst case, you take the 77.5 total that's in favor of some sort of tax increase, you could take those numbers, actual unit numbers, and take out 15% to get a real tax-paying number, worst case scenario.
Yeah, you could take, like if we said 80% of that number, so you take 77, you take the 77.5% and then just take 80% of that, would get to a more accurate number.
There were some interesting comments about who should be responding to a survey. So we wanted to make sure that even like youth could participate, because it really is important to them also,
Right,
right?
but
And they're not paying taxes. And then there were some comments from, maybe I'm hearing here, that like it should only be taxpayers, because eventually the referendum will only go to the taxpayers. However, some of the renters also wrote in the comments, I'm not a taxpayer, a residential taxpayer, but this is important to me, and the increase in taxes would also affect them eventually down the line. So, I understand in terms of the referendum, in terms of immediate effects of increase in tax, it would be the taxpayers, but we're also trying to gauge the interest in many items in this survey, not just about the tax, about also what the needs are.
So it's fair to say there's there's some support for some increased taxation to support a facility, but I would hate to see a number of 75% bandied around the community, that 75% of the people of Revelstoke were willing to pay $100 and some million. Not to say whether I support or not, I just think it's a little bit. And the other thing is, it's not in context. It's point in time for a facility, 110 million, whatever. And like, has already been mentioned here, there is a whole other lineup of things that's going to have to be paid for in this town over the next 15, 20 years, probably sooner. So this question, nice to say, but it's not the context of your tax bill.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair point. It is not 77.5% of the community. It's 77.5% of those who responded to this survey. And we tried to make that as clear as we can, but fair point. Yeah.
I had one other question. I was curious about the results for the multipurpose and recreation facility, adding that into a new facility when we already have such a facility, and I wondered if you had any insight into what's driving that. Is it deficiency in the existing offer? Is it demand for, because the community has grown? Like, what did you?
Yeah, and so maybe Lori or others can speak to the demand that's in the city, but what we've heard through the conversations that we've had is that demand is really high. There's giant wait lists in terms of people looking to use general multipurpose spaces. So a gymnasium is perfect for that. So people, all different types of users, be it any type of activity, are looking for an indoor, a place where they could be year-round to do their activities. And a gymnasium, that's what I'm reading through and what I can gather from the information is that the priority is on year-round, multi-use type spaces. And that's where the demand is within the community. And so a gymnasium fits that bill. Just like a space like this, it fits that bill quite well.
Yeah. Is it an increase or is it a replacement, I guess?
Yeah, and so my sense is that there is demand and that the increase is needed.
And my final one is, in the basis of your discussions, what population number of Revelstoke are you using?
Well, I just looked up the census. Do you mean?
Well, in terms of
yeah.
planning, we're talking about planning for the future.
Yeah.
What number are we working to?
So our survey didn't use a number. We didn't reference that. We just referenced the 2021 census information to gauge it against who responded to it. So the fact that we wanted to make sure, did we get enough respondents from all ages, all age groups, and we referenced that against the 2021 consensus.
Okay, thank you.
Correct. Yeah.
Hi there, Mitch Long. I'm a recent first-time homebuyer in Revelstoke. I think someone who has a good idea of affordability or lack thereof in the town, and maybe someone representing the demographic that'll bear the brunt of the cost of this facility. I was just curious if there was any sort of consideration or addressing of confirmation bias within the survey. I think it's not unreasonable to think that maybe people who are generally opposed to a facility are thinking, no, I don't want anything to do with that survey, as opposed to, avid curlers or hockey parents who rallied all their folks together to take the survey. I was wondering if that was addressed at all in the results.
Yeah, and from our experience of working with communities, this is the slide that captures that. What we really get worried about is if a single user group has a really strong presence in it, and then we start to lose confidence in the amount of the data that we're getting, because we're seeing that it's biased by a single group. So, for example, if it was only the hockey groups that showed up and responded to this, we would know that it's somewhat biased to hockey or the Grizzlies or things like that. But what the good news here is the extensive amount of individuals and groups that, running club, pickleball, skateboarding, seniors association, roller derby, youth soccer, there were some larger groups. So as I compare it against other communities that we've done, this is a really good representation across that. So I don't know if that answers your question fully,
No,
but
fair,
it
yeah.
does. It was really good to see the extensive amount of users that responded to it.
Okay, and just a quick follow-up, and I think I probably know the answer to this one, but I think there was a slide earlier that it was, how many of the respondents were taxpayers. Is there any way at all to consider false answers in questions like that? I mean, if I was not a taxpayer and I really wanted this facility, I don't know if I'd be all that hesitant to just say, yes, I'm a taxpayer. So I don't know if that's,
There wasn't a, are you a taxpayer question? There was, do you own residential property
Yeah,
or do you own
yeah.
commercial property? That was kind of the only, and then, of course, like we had talked about before, there was the question, you know, how much, what's your willingness for tax? So we didn't filter just on who said residential. So yeah, what you said before, maybe 80% of that, or 80-something percent were taxpayers of those that answered. Yeah, so.
thank you very much.
Yep.
But if people lied on the survey, you know, we can't really filter for that, so.
My name is Pat McKee. I'm a taxpayer. I'm just going to tell you a little story. A few years ago, I was sitting next to a city councillor and who had the idea that we should expand the revitalization and sort of beautification of the downtown area. And this certain councillor had run on a platform of not raising taxes. So I said, well, that sounds good, but how much would that cost? And so kind of figured it out, and for the average taxpayer, for what that person wanted to do, it would be, I'd say between, at that time, $60 to $90 a year. So I asked a friend of mine who had children, I said, what does $60 to $90 a year on your taxes mean to you? And she says, that means a bunch of kids are not going to be playing soccer. So when I see a $500, $400, $500 tax increase, I just have to wonder about the scale of what that's going to do for people having access to this, when actually we have a plethora of outdoor activities that are kind of free and great here. So just want to bring up that point. The other point I want to bring up was when you were answering or indicating some of the returns, Darren, what you said was that's great, we got this many for this. And I'm just wondering if you considered whether the perception of the audience here had that, if that indicated a bias towards a certain outcome.
Do you mean in terms of the response numbers or which number?
We've got this, so that's great. So as a consultant, excuse
Right.
me, Kathy. So I wondered why one answer was greater than a different answer. As far as a consultant, I think that you should be giving the answers.
Yeah.
Just black and white, no emotional content.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a fair point. And I'm assume I have biases, and they might not be fully checked. So I apologize, but no, no, I don't. But it wasn't intended to do that. I guess my excitement was around the fact that the response was great, and that the numbers were something that was substantial that we could talk about. Because if we showed up here tonight and we only had 300 people that respond to it, I feel like it would be really hard to really have a solid conversation around it. So I think my excitement was around that.
But your response was not that, the number of responses in that case was great. Your response was that the 7 or 8% who were willing to, or who said yes, or who agreed to the tax rate.
I see.
That's what you said was great.
Right, okay, yeah. Yeah, so, yeah, I think I was yeah, fair enough. I was acknowledging that some people acknowledge that some people are willing to pay for it. If it's important to them and they value it, is what I read out of that.
My name is Dennis Berarducci. I would like to know, and let's cut to the chase, what's the lifespan of the forum as we speak? Is this all futile, and we're going to this is going to get rammed down our throats anyhow, or is this going to just end up a new arena? Nobody has given us a time frame for the life of the Revelstoke Forum. Yes, it's aged. Yes, it's done its day. But can you give us 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, or 6 months?
Oh, Dennis, you know I can't answer that. We don't know. And that'll come right from the engineers. They don't know. They just know that the facility has reached end of life. It's assessed each year. We make sure we get the snow off. We have a very robust program to get rid of the snow. We're doing an independent review. That engineering report on the condition of the trusses is going to be going before council next month. We had an open house to deal with the Revelstoke Forum and its life. No one knows how long it's going to last. We just know, based on what the consultants are telling us and the experts, and these are people in structural engineering, that the trusses are failing. And we know there's a floor issue. We know that the brine lines leak. We know that the flooring needs replacement. We know washrooms need to be upgraded. Every time you do a renovation, it triggers a building code thing. We're trying to ascertain that, but it starts with the structural integrity of the roof, and that report will be going before council, and that was a result of the open house we had a couple of months ago when we talked about the Revelstoke Forum. We're going to take one more look at this, rather than have the same report come to council each year, which is the Watson report. We now have a second set of eyes, a different firm looking at the condition of the trusses, and we'll have more to report then. I wish I could give you a number, because that's the question we are all asking at the staff level. How much more time do we have? And we can't get an answer from the professionals, other than it's aged, it's breaking down, sort of like me, and you don't have much time left. That's really what we're told. Sorry. Nice jersey, by the way. Anyone else?
Hi. I'm Steve Cross. I'm a business owner and I'm also a taxpayer. I just want to say thanks for the survey. I happened to do my undergrad a couple lifetimes ago in statistical analysis, among other things, and surveys are tough, and I certainly respect that some questions alienate people. That's always the case. But what I liked about the survey was it actually put some numbers forward. So I thought that was brave. I'd never seen a survey do that before. So I thought that was good work. And I think, it's a directional pointer. Ultimately, council will decide what direction with staff, and ultimately it comes back to the taxpayer. I have all the concerns about money that everyone in the room has. Not so much from the increased cost of this, which I support, because I think it'll add to the community, and I think that you get a once in a lifetime chance to build a facility like this. The pool and the new high school were also contentious when they happened. They've proven to be really successful. But nonetheless, it's got to fit in financially, and it's got to make sense for the vast majority of Revelstokians, right? My concern is what other people have said about all the other needs we have. And I would just say that has to be expressed clearly in any referendum that comes forward for the money side, right? Like, what are we really dealing with in a whole picture? I think all the taxpayers deserve that full disclosure, would be my comment. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Steve Bailey. I just want to echo Mark's comments about the survey being steered. It really felt like it was steered exactly what Mark was saying. And I'm going to be the glass half empty guy right now, because I just did some math. If my math is correct, the 16% of us that answered no to building a new arena, if you put that into your number where you've got the number of, I believe it was 22% that they want a new arena, but they don't want to see any tax increases. That takes it up to, I think it was 34% of those that completed the survey don't want to see any tax increase.
No,
Then-
sorry, it was the total. So 1,500, the 22%, 0.5 included the no answers. So
Okay.
it didn't, yeah.
Okay, thanks. But you take that 22% plus the other 22% that wanted the minimum tax increase, we're getting pretty close to 50-50 with people that want to see less than the $200 tax increase. So I wanted to make that point, because to Mark's point, the survey was really directed one way for an arena, and as soon as you said no, it took you away from it all. So to that point as well, I filled it out multiple times because I said no, like Mark, and then you're like, well, the survey's over, so I went back in, logged in with a different IP address, and I wonder how many people, and if you're certain organizations or whatever, you can go in on a VPN, and that's another question. How many people filled it in on a VPN? That might give you an idea how many people filled it in on multiple times. Because again, as people have said, 1,500 seems like an awful lot in the survey. I know I filled it out multiple times because I was trying to figure my way through it. So the numbers are really skewed, I feel.
Yeah, we tried as best possible to like validate the results, like through the, of course, you know, I'm sure you all also want a forum to be able to like share your real views, which this is one of them, and the survey was one of them. So if there was deliberate effort to try to skew the results, I mean, that we can't do anything about that, but yeah, in your hearts, I guess you would want also to have results, either whatever the results were that were accurate or close to accurate on survey.
Yeah, and I would just say that this isn't a new condition within communities. This happens in every community, and the Othello platform is a survey for communities like yourselves, and the platform does have a system to try and track any types of duplicate responses and things like that. And so it's not perfect, but there are ways, there is due diligence done in terms of trying to track those who are doing it multiple times.
I just want to add a little bit about the numbers, because I know at the end of the day, it's about the ability to pay and the cost and cost escalation today, the world we live in post-COVID. I could go on and on. When I started off in this business, to build a new arena was $5 million. And for 98% of municipalities, that was within 60 months to pay for, and you just went ahead and built it, and electoral consent was the election. Those days are long gone. And so now the challenge is how much debt should be applied to a facility. And I'm encouraging council to look at a pledge rather than a full amount. The failed referendums I've seen in BC is when a municipality goes to the people and asks for the full amount to be financed by debt. Their argument is, well, if we don't get grants and we don't find a partner and there's no angel investor, at least the people gave us the money to build the facility. That's if the referendum passes. I don't subscribe to that. I think debt should be a percentage of the total cost, and that's it. And it has to fall within the ability to pay. And then another percentage has to be grant funds, and another percentage has to be a partnership or other. I think that's probably the best approach for a facility that could easily be $100 million. People have come to me and said, how the hell can an arena cost $100 million? That's ridiculous. And what we're doing is we're trying to break it down to per square foot. So a typical arena is 55,000, 60,000 square feet. We're trying to nail down a Class C, a Class B cost estimate of what it would cost. Is it $500 a square foot? Is it $1,000? What is the number? But cost escalation and contingency is built in the estimate. So when you see $100 million, the base price of the arena could be 50 or 60 million. If you see a number of 80 million, the base price of the facility could be 40, 50 million. The other 10 million or 20 million is contingency. It's a percentage of the total cost, or it's cost escalation. The good thing about the survey, in my opinion, is that the numbers that were shared are at the high end because they factored in contingency and they factored in cost escalation, because we're another 4 years from breaking ground and completing this project. So we built those numbers, the cost escalation, into 2029, into 2030. So the actual base price is not the total price that you see when you factor in contingency and cost escalation. Thank you.
And that 100 million number that you saw, that was like the consensus version. So that was the one that also included a gymnasium, multi-purpose facility, or multi-purpose rooms and fitness. So, and curling, because it included the base, the option A for the base facility, which included new curling. So, sorry. Yeah, the running track is kind of like, there was some comments about the running track. That's kind of like, with a new arena, that kind of comes with it because you have the space for it. So it wasn't really an additional cost. It was just like, you get that with it.
It's relatively cheap.
Yeah.
For sure. Sir.
Yeah, I'm John and a taxpayer. When I did the survey too, I was kind of disappointed. because I thought that it didn't cover everything. We got people here that can fix that arena. And what I'm asking the city to do is, have they looked into putting money into this arena? Put a new roof on 1 year, and maybe next year do the surface? And then we wouldn't be 100 million in debt. You might be able to do it for, a good price. So that should have been on the survey too. It should have been like, you have this choice and this choice and this choice, and try to fix what we got, because I don't think we got an option. We're gonna either end up with no arena at all and a condemned building, or we fix what we got and we can afford maybe a new roof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, thank you. The survey did not get into the cost to renovate the Revelstoke Forum. It simply asked yes or no, and if it was no, would you consider something smaller? We had a separate open house to talk about the Revelstoke Forum. Just to remind everyone, I believe it was in February. We did get a Class D cost estimate, which is just a broad cost estimate, to fix the roof, to fix the floor, to fix the boards, some cosmetic surgery, the entranceway, 25, 26, 27 million. Okay, again, it's a Class D. How much time that buys, we don't know. We don't know until we get this final engineering study done on a new roof. How many more upgrades will that trigger under the new building code? The building code is more strict today. The rules today are not the same as they were 30 years ago. So even if we were to invest 25 million and save the form, the question is, how long does it last? Does it buy us 10 years, 15 years? And is that a good return on our investment? That's something council has to consider. When we get the independent structural engineering report on the roof, we'll have a better idea. But right now, we did go to a contractor. We asked them specifically, what would it cost ballpark, new roof, new floor, 25 to 27 million. How long would that last? 8 years, 10 years, 12 years. And that's all we know. In the meantime, we wait for the independent structural engineer on the status of the wood trusses, which is the integral part. And I have to remind everyone, and I'm reminded by our operators, the brine lines are original in the Revelstoke Forum. It's unbelievable when you consider it's been over 60 years. Yes, there's leakage, and there's concern about the status of the floor. The floor has to be removed. It has to be replaced. The brine lines, that sends all the refrigeration up and down the 200 feet. They have to be replaced. And that's actually, for the operation of the forum, more important in terms of operation than the roof. The roof's all about safety, of course. And that's the primary concern, is public safety. But it's not just the roof, it's also a new floor. So those are the numbers we're playing with on the Revelstoke Forum, and they were not part of the survey, no.
You gotta do stuff with buildings. It doesn't matter anyway, after a period of time. Even this building here, they have to pass certain
Yeah.
codes, So, I mean, give us 20 years down the road, you fix it up again, But you're not paying 160 million or 160.
No. I mean, assets, they have end of life. Every building, every vehicle, anything has end of life, including ourselves. And sooner or later, a decision has to be made, renovate or build new. Facilities that last more than 60 years are a bonus, and we're quite lucky. I mean, the folks that built the Revelstoke Forum in the 60s, and it's still standing, is a remarkable achievement. I look around, and I know the Penticton story quite well. It's a very similar old building, the memorial, and they had to basically say goodbye to it, and it was polarizing for the community because it had been there since the late 40s. But facilities do reach end of life, and we rely on the experts to tell us it's time. What's frustrating, back to Dennis's question, is we can't get 6 months or a year or 2 years, other than, you know what, your trusses are failing, the cracks are getting longer and they're getting bigger and they're more plentiful, and you got to do something with the roof, and you need a new floor. And so now we're trying to get a number that council's comfortable with to consider as an option.
There was also, separate from the, the technical and cost aspects of replacing, or not replacing, of renovating the existing forum. The survey also did show us that there's really a lot of interest in having multi-use spaces for a variety of types of people, from different age groups to different accessibility needs to different sports or other types of interests. So that wouldn't completely be addressed with renovating the forum. So they're still, they're still exploring the versions of the renovation, but those items have been noted by many in the community as a need.
I have another comment specifically on the survey. The survey, to me, came across like a shopping list. You're looking at a new car online. Do you want the top model? Do you want this? Do you want that? And yeah, sure. So do you want a fitness room? Do you want a climbing wall? Do you want this? Do you want that? And that seemed to be a theme throughout the whole survey, from my point of view, was a wish list. And it's just easy to say, yep, that sounds good. That sounds good. That sounds good. And of course, who could not agree with all those things would be great. And there's no cost involved on a survey. But that's how the survey read to me.
Yeah, and that was the whole intention behind the capital cost that was associated with each selection. So we've seen exactly what you described in many historical surveys where, you ask them, what do you want to include? And people say, yes, I want that. Yes, I want that. But they don't understand the implications to it. And so that was the goal. And that's one of the good things about the Othello platform, is that as people selected that, on the sidebar, it was also telling them what it would cost and what your increase in your taxes would be annually. So that as people went through, they were educated, well, I do want another gymnasium with this. I also want this, but then this is the cost impact to it. So that was the goal of this one.
But the assumption may be that there are no other increases in costs in anything else, just on this project. So when you add this project to other things, that's not
Yeah, and that goes back to one of the comments of, when we summarize the results of this, let's make sure that it's in conjunction with all of the priorities of the community, not just the recreation facility, which is a fair point. Yeah. Yep.
Thanks for the survey. The list of user groups that showed up that you have on your survey, a lot of those, some of them deal with out-of-town competitions or games with other communities and stuff. Revelstoke is known for snow. Maybe not so much now with global warming, but at the same time, a lot of teams need indoor spaces to begin their practice for seasons to begin until they could get into, say, for example, the arena. And they're always behind their competition when it comes to their training, and having a facility that's year-round may help to sway the pendulum the other way, so that teams from Revelstoke may have a better competition chance of winning in games that they play. Yes, this is expensive. Nothing's cheap nowadays, so that's it.
Thank you. Do you want to go to the mic? Yeah.
It's not a survey question. I just was wondering what the status is with the Grizzlies. Are they committed for a number of years, and what the impact of their not having a facility here would be on the community? I mean, certainly there's a lot of winter workers who rely on it for entertainment. But I don't know.
Yeah, I'll leave that for Evan.
I should ask Dennis to come up and talk about the Grizzlies, or Peter. The Grizzlies belong to the Kootenay International Junior Hockey League. They're going through some changes. They're now Tier 2 Junior A. I'm not going to get into the technical stuff, but basically the league is shrinking to the elite Tier 2 Junior A level. The Grizzlies are committed. BC Hockey League is changing. That's the group that Salmon Arm is part of, Vernon, etc. There's lots of issues with Hockey Canada. That is a very complex system. Teams have left and relocated. They've come back. For example, Summerland lost its team and went to Williams Lake. Now Summerland's getting a new franchise. They're going to start again, but at a different tier level. So things can change and be realigned with the different levels of junior hockey. When the KI decided to go from, I believe, over 20 teams to down to 11 starting next year, because it's going to be, again, Tier 2 Junior A, they interviewed those communities that are allowed to stay, and the condition of the facility was one of the main criteria. Does your team make money? Are they well supported? Of course, Revelstoke checked all the boxes. It's a very successful organization. They've won championships. So we were one of the 11 that were selected to continue on with this new tiered system. But the Chases and the Sicamouses and the smaller communities lost their teams. And a lot of it has to do with the facility. And so we're watching that closely. To operate a KI team is roughly $800,000 a year. To operate a team in the BCHL is double that, 1.6, 1.8 million. To operate a Western Hockey League team like the Rockets or now the Penticton Vs is $3.5, 4 million a year. Typically, in a KI, you get a crowd of 500 to 1,000 people. Kimberley and Revelstoke usually top the attendance every year. Kimberley can get anywhere from 1,400 people. We can't. We max out at 900 and something. The most we've ever got is close to 1,000. So that's why the additional seating question was there. So back to your question, looking at the future, could the Revelstoke Grizzlies get 1,500 fans for a certain game? Sure. I've been asked, would they be contributing toward this new facility? They would have to raise their prices. They're a non-for-profit, so they're not privately held. All the money they make goes back into the society. But that is a question I'm asked. Would the Grizzlies contribute more to a new facility? They're our major tenant. They occupy a lot of ice time. They pay substantial ice fees throughout the season with their games. But I think they should pay. And they know that. I've talked to Ryan about that. We haven't determined an amount yet. They currently charge $20, $22 a ticket. If they increased it to $30, it wouldn't really go toward the operating cost of the facility. It wouldn't go through capital, because the capital is a big, big number. But we could certainly use help on the operating side to keep, because that's a big cost too, folks, right? It's the annual operating cost, especially with a new facility. With that, if there's no final questions, thank you. This is not easy. I see some elected officials here tonight. On Tuesday next week, we're going to be talking about sort of the next steps, and the next step is the referendum question, the process, and reporting out to the public, because that has to be reported out. What does a referendum mean? What is the scheduling and the timelines? That's going to be discussed Tuesday. And then we're going to take these survey results and start to get a better cost estimate on the reno cost for the forum based on this new engineering study we're going to get done, and hopefully with price compression right now, and there's a little bit of price compression in the marketplace, trying to understand exactly what the square foot cost of new construction would be for a facility. So the intent tonight was just to report out the numbers. I hope it made sense. I was certainly listening to the comments. Again, a couple of elected officials here, Councillor Orlando, Councillor Cherry. They're listening, and they'll report back to council on the feedback we heard tonight. It's a big project, and we know that. Anything else from anyone? Okay. Thanks again, folks.